A close look at the Northwest states. The governorship election is a straight battle between the ruling APC and the main opposition PDP. Well, what are the dynamics likely to play out in that region? For more on this, I'm now being joined by the Director, Center for Democracy and Development, Idayat Hassan, and Dr. Joe Abah, the Country Director of DAI. You're welcome to the program. I was tempted to say gentlemen because in journalism you don't have ladies, you know, we're all gentlemen in the profession. Idayat, we're earlier supposed to have had one of the national commissioners of INEC here, that is Festus Okoye, and they are right now in an emergency meeting at the INEC headquarters. No doubt, maybe because of the reports we're getting from Akwa Ibom State about the burning of the state INEC headquarters there. What does this portend? Because I know the CDD and the Nigerian Situation Room only yesterday canvassed against, one, the militarization of the electoral process, as well as, you know, the violence that was witnessed during the presidential and National Assembly elections.
I think it's very sad this is actually happening again. Less than 24 hours to the elections. The offices in Akwa Ibom has been burnt, some card readers missing, also in Bayelsa. It tells you the nature of politics. And it tells you that even election is a stakeholders' affair. That is what is actually becoming more and more obvious to the ordinary people this time around. It does not just take INEC. It takes the political class. It takes the security. It takes the people to together come together and have an election, either free, fair, credible, that's one. But it takes all the stakeholders, because in the absence of that, you'll be wondering why all this is happening in Akwa Ibom State. The National Assembly elections, the national elections, both the presidential and the National Assembly elections, witnessed a lot of crisis in the same state. Since the end of that elections, you look at the trajectory again, there has been a lot of outcry by some parties saying that even the resident electoral commissioners must be removed to the highest level. Some days back again, you heard that some thugs, more than 200 of them, were intercepted coming into Akwa Ibom State. Now, it tells you the tension. It tells you that this is a state we really have to watch. And with what has happened today, it is brought to fore the fact that there is an attempt to ensure that elections do not actually take place tomorrow in that place.
Why is that?
It's the nature of politics. It is the context.
Why is the Nigerian politics different from other? Is politics not universal?
Now, the Nigerian politics has shown that it is not just a do or die thing. It's a self-serving. Because the question I raise most times now is, if elections are like this, if really the essence of politics, the essence of democracy, by this, an involvement in this whole electioneering process, either to get elected as an elected official, is to serve the interest of the people, you wouldn't have almost 40 people, more than 40 people killed during the presidential elections. You wouldn't have arson being carried out upon the institution that
right in front of security agencies.
So this is telling you that there is a sophistication. There is an attempt to thwart this 20 years of democracy, which the first uninterrupted 20 years of democracy in the history of this country, Nigeria, and calling for a rethink of what democracy is. It's very, very sad. And I think the flip side that the politicians have refused to realize is that it is this nature of politics, the violence as a second issue, and thirdly, the inability of that democracy to deliver development to the people that is responsible for the low voter turnout that has progressively beclouded our electoral
process.
So you look at it in 1999, we had over 52% voter turnout. The highest was 69% in 2003. But since that time,
it's been declining.
It's been declining. The last 2015 elections was 43 just approximate it and make it a
45.
44%. Now we got just like 36%, which is actually worrying. And tomorrow I wonder who will actually go out and vote. And the day has just broke, mind you. We will hear more of that in other states. Different, varied level of localized, localized violence, even in places that are not traditional hotspots.
Yeah.
Because this is a local election.
Yeah.
The interest matters. And there are different interests that is actually at stake.
Dr. Joe Abah, you are of the DAI. Tomorrow looks dicey, just as Idayat, you know, is painting. It does not tell of a good sign, you know, for development democratically, because people came out to vote, you chased them away, some were killed, their votes were burnt, you know, the election still stood. What are your fears about tomorrow?
Let me start by expressing my joy that you didn't say welcome, gentlemen, especially as today is International Women's Day.
I really would have been taken to the cleaners.
The second thing to say is that we are a relatively young democracy. And in any relatively young democracy, there's likely to be tensions and contestations. That is not in any way to excuse some of what we're witnessing. Like Idayat rightly said, if the purpose truly is to serve, then you shouldn't need to burn ballot boxes. You shouldn't need to kill people in order to serve. But I'll come at it from the position of processes and systems, because we should be, the fact that ballot boxes are being burnt and INEC offices are being burnt is not really a surprise, because some of it happened before the last presidential elections, and we're quite pleased that INEC announced that it was able to recover within 24 to 48 hours. And so it's one thing to plan for an eventuality like this kind of event and then put in place contingency arrangements to ensure that you can quickly recover from them. And so for me, we should be looking at making our electoral system such that violence won't actually matter. It won't actually count. You know, if we can insulate our electoral system from any perceived benefits of snatching ballot boxes or burning INEC offices or perpetrating violence, if it is made not to matter, then people will stop doing it. People still...
I don't know. I don't think a lot of Nigerians will understand that. To make not to matter how. Akwa Ibom INEC office is being raised. How do you, in 24 hours, get voting materials, reconfiguring the smart card readers where, I mean, even 1 week extension before the presidential election, we still had some failing. You know, logistics is still a huge problem. And don't forget, maybe that's when I'll ask Idayat, the 1 billion naira INEC is paid to the CBN and the Nigeria Air Force to, you know, airlift, warehouse its materials and the rest. But let's hear your own viewpoint on this.
So my question will be this. Is it a surprise that there's trouble in Akwa Ibom? Is it a surprise there might be trouble in Kaduna? Is it a surprise there might be some tensions in Lagos? Would it be a surprise there will be some tensions in Kano? We should be able to plan ahead with these things and say, okay, assuming that the INEC office is burnt in Akwa Ibom, what are we going to do? Assuming that ballot boxes are snatched and people, what are we going to do? We can't simply keep on saying, God will not let it happen. We can't keep saying that. So the answer is better planning, better preparation, contingency planning, so that when these things happen, we can respond immediately to address them.
Okay. Idayat, in your address yesterday, you expressly stated with the Situation Room that the military should be kept far away from the polling areas. But with the kind of arson that has taken place now, don't you think that the military is still needed, you know, to keep security and the rest?
I think the military is needed to keep security, but not necessarily in cases like this, which we have not investigated how it happened. We don't know who and who was actually in charge. And okay, now if I can go back to memory lane, thanks for saying that. Before the presidential elections, the IG, the Inspector General of Police, promised us that there will actually be a full detachment of police personnel around INEC offices.
With 400,000 personnel in the whole country. So over 170 polling units.
And it's even beyond that, because now they've been talking about deployment 15,000 to this state, 12,000. Akwa Ibom and Rivers are getting like the largest deployment. But beyond the deployment, there was a express promise made that around the state Independent National Electoral Commission at the state level,
their offices
will be well protected. 24 hours into the elections, we first have to investigate, how did this happen?
Security failure?
Is it security failure? Is it Hassan? Is it just an act of God that this happened? It's some electrical something. It's not a... Because if we are now trying to say that this is a sabotage, this is Hassan, then we have to query where the police are. And I can tell you, because I do monitor elections at the state level, at times when you see the detachment and you are not even strong, you want to run away when you want to go to INEC, because we always have to go to INEC like almost every day once we arrive in any of the off-cycle elections. And the detachment of police, you see. Even if we had to go to Abuja now, you see how well fortified. So how this happened is what should actually be investigated. And the inability of it to be curtailed, if this is a sabotage, which most people now without is trying to make it look like, or it looks like, let's say 60–70%, it looks more like it, because it's situated in one of the most volatile and hotly contested states in these elections. Is actually Akwa Ibom, not Rivers. Rivers has a history of electoral violence. Some of the local governments where those happenings took place, it's always been like that. Since 2011 that I've been following elections, I can give you an idea of that. The same thing has actually happened in those places. So that's one. Now, when you also look at what the security, the military in particular, have done, we have just released another new report, which is actually a preliminary report because we are looking at our data. But our first finding from the report on the coalition phase gave us 3 important trends. One is the collusion between the military and some non-state actors. Non-state actors like gangs.
Yeah.
The second gives you an idea of the military trying to quash the activities of the gangs from interfering in the electoral process. And the third one is actually the military themselves taking the laws into their hands. So you look at all what happened last week, 2 weeks ago, you see it is the military being fingered here, is the military being fingered. There is even an Abonema, clearly. They have said more than 30 people have been killed so far. There is a connivance with some actors and some parts of the security agencies. We have little or no evidence of police interference in this.
The chief of army staff, the Nigerian chief of the army, doesn't seem to be helping matters. Lieutenant General Buratai is jumping into the fray as if he's the military president in Nigeria.
And that is the problem, because the work of election security is not the work of the military. It is the primary responsibility of the police.
What's his interest?
Police is the coordinating head in the instances.
Absolutely.
So how come? So most of those things that is actually being said by the chief of army staff should be said by the Inspector General of Police. And that is not infusing confidence in people, actually. In fact, if we are going to see, if we look at the turnout tomorrow, in some parts of the country, it's actually going to be low because of the fear of the military. So if we are not able to secure the most important installations, that is not done. We are not able to secure the polling area and the collation. We cannot even secure the collation officers. You saw instances of INEC officers being killed. We saw instances of INEC officials coming on
being kidnapped and held hostage. Yeah.
National TV, they admitted to it. It's not like one Idayat
that they were forced to sign election.
That tells you something different, because if it is one Idayat that has come and said CDD said, then they are going to say, oh, those people, they have contrived
the whole situation.
But it is those individuals
involved, stakeholders,
and you find that most of it, they are alleging that it's with the connivance
of the military.
So these are is weighty issues. It's very, very weighty. Then the fact that some of the deployments, we do not also have the correct numbers of this deployment. So they've told us 15,000, 12,000 here, 6 Air Force jets is going to be deployed in some particular parts of the country. Air
Force jets that are supposed to be deployed to the northeast.
So they are going to do that. I'm more interested in the K9 dogs.
Yeah.
I'm busy looking for them all over.
So much money was budgeted for that.
And I'm yet to see
one. Go on, because I know CDD has 3,500
We're going beyond
observers.
that. We're actually going beyond that in these elections. What we have done in these elections is that we have supported our partners at the Premium Times and at the cable to deploy more journalists. Because when we are talking of gathering evidence, the way they are able to gather evidence, the way they are able to survive in very difficult terrain cannot be the same for a traditional observer. So that's what we have again capitalized on, because this is
as undercover.
So this is the election of gathering evidence. It's not actually to prove anybody wrong or to thwart the outcome. Yes, we are always pleased to share our outcome of the outcome of our observation, but it's to get things done better. Because in 2023, we cannot afford to be here. And just to add lastly, the issue of violence is very worrying. I think we should share with you our work on it. It's already in infographics. We took a look at the history of electoral violence from 1999 till date. And instead of getting better, it's actually getting worse. It was only in 1999 that we had cases of intimidation as the most... The least. No, that happened. The most is intimidation, maybe few arson. No evidence of this aided electoral violence taking place. But from 2003, new trends continue to unfold. Things continue to get worse at the state levels until these now elections that they have even brought in new dimensions of ballot burning. It used to be ballot snatching and stuffing. Now you have ballot burning, and every different ramification. It's a very sad thing.
It's quite sad and frightening indeed. But tell us, Joe Abah, INEC seems to want to hasten its pace, you know, in doing the right things, those things that were done wrongly before, just like Idayat pointed out, cases where returning officers were held hostage and said they were forced to sign result sheets and the rest. INEC says no certificate of returns will be given to such candidates where INEC officials were held under duress. Right step in the right direction, coming too late, or better, you know, too late than now?
I think it's the right step in the right direction, because when people have been compelled to announce results under duress, then those results cannot stand. So yes, I think it's the right thing in the right direction. Let's not forget that managing national elections is a huge logistical challenge. I think many of us don't realize how big a logistical challenge it is. And therefore, there are likely to be areas in which there will be issues and challenges, and that happens all over the world. However, where people have deliberately tried to stop the elections from happening, then INEC is taking exactly the right step by making sure that they don't benefit from that thuggery. So yes, there will be. I'm sure, you know, these issues will go to courts. And they should. I think our democracy is strengthened the more we go to courts
to test
to test our positions, and that's why it's vitally important that we have a free, fair, and credible judiciary, not just an electoral system. Because if people feel that they can seek justice by going to the judiciary, then more and more people will go and test their actions in court. So I think that's the way to strengthen our democracy. So I think INEC is on the right path.
Okay, that's great. Idayat, INEC says it has reconfigured the smart card readers, you know, and that the smart card readers must be used in these elections. Your observation, you know, to a very large extent in some areas, the smart card reader was jettisoned, which is, again, against the electoral laws, but INEC still allowed that to stand. Do you think INEC would do something different now? Do you believe in their proposition, what they've said should be the right thing?
That's actually the right thing to do, but I think what happened on the field is more of a challenge of training and part of how we have to know how to plan better. So what happened on the field 2 weeks ago was, in some places you just see people refuse. There are three things. If the smart card reader doesn't work, if it doesn't authenticate your card, but your name, your face, your this, you sign. If it authenticates, but your biometrics are not captured, you are allowed to vote. These are different scenarios. But where there is an outright connivance or refusal to deploy the smart card reader by any officials, one, the first thing is it's a criminal offense by the presiding officer. Secondly is that this is also the votes in that area will be cancelled and 0 votes returned. Now, in several parts of the country, that didn't happen. They just went on like that and they did not use it. In other parts of the country, people complied with the rule. Now, it's at times human error, lack of training, at times it's a connivance. And because we rarely bring people to account in our electoral system, there is nothing really like electoral justice in Nigeria. People just do things and they go away like that with impunity. So that was what happened last year. And to say that INEC Abuja will now, last 2 weeks, INEC Abuja is able to make it happen is almost an anomaly. It is the stakeholders, the people there at that, the party agents in particular, must see to it that it happens. The party agents
now,
must
when they
see.
are chased, when their life is in danger, like some of the POs, for example, who were raped, who were battered, who were held hostage, some were killed.
When they get back, no. Now, once that happens, it's also a chain of command. Because one thing you know is that if a PO, like the returning officer, came and told the truth, if the PO leaves the place, whatever it has been done, and gets to the next level, it's more about processes, actually. I'm not talking, people, we do not follow processes in Nigeria. Because once that has happened and you know you are afraid, then once you go,
that there are people on ground to sabotage it, to you know, subvert the
But
process.
when it gets to the next level, that process level again, where you have the opportunity to whistleblow and give a true situation of what has happened, in most instances, people do not. Especially when you know that by that time you are safe. People do not. And that is why we have challenges most times. It will really, you really have people like the returning officer in Imo and the one in Rivers who all came up and said, this is what happened. At times they would prefer to pick a phone and tell the Idayat, the observer, as if we write it in, then what happens? It's not going to form part of electoral jurisprudence that way. So it's very, very important that INEC, at the state level where they are conducting these elections now,
it should be much easier, shouldn't it?
That no, this elections is not as easy as the last elections. This is the real elections.
Really, I mean, when you look at the geographical settings of each state and the rest, yes, some are bigger, some are smaller. It should be a piece of cake in terms of logistics and the rest and the conduct.
It's not about logistics. It's about this determination to win at all costs.
That's on the part of the contestants. Yeah.
That's it. It's not really. It's about how do you subvert processes. I think one thing we've not realized is that there is a huge sophistication. There is a huge sophistication
in
on
hacking election results.
It's not just hacking election results. In the actions, in the way this war is being prosecuted, this is a war for the actors. It is not an ordinary contest where you can win or lose. Because what I've realized in the last 2 weeks is that they've read all the INEC guidelines, the Electoral Act, and they have used their understanding to subvert the process. So they are acting with precision. They are not just acting like, oh, we are taking this thing as a random. It's really with precision, with high level of sophistication, well planned and executed.
Idayat, if you were voting from your submissions, you're already discouraged as a voter to want to go out there to vote, because it's like your vote doesn't matter, it doesn't count, it won't hold, it won't be allowed to take place.
I disagree with that also, because when we came during some of these things, I think planning, like Dr. Joe likes to say, I'm beginning to see the real need for planning, following processes.
INEC had its plans laid out even 2 years before these elections, and you are aware of that.
Since 2015, since ahead of the 2015 election, they had the EMS system, which gives you an idea of one step to the other, one step to the other. So once there is red, you can't go to the next step, because it's a well-planned system. But I don't know how well we planned, and as other actors too, because we are not beginning to see the truth that election is a stakeholders affair. Until we agree on that and Nigerians see it will continue to be this way, and it will get worse, really.
Dr. Joe, is it getting worse? I made an analogy, with Idayat submissions, expressions, pains that the average that the Nigerian electorate is facing. Do you share that anxiety too?
First of all, I want to quickly address the issue of the presiding officers.
Okay.
I think, to be fair to them, they are often in a very difficult situation. They are young men and young women. We haven't instilled a confidence in them that if they actually whistleblow or speak the truth or stand for justice, they have some protection around them. So I think it's important to recognize that these are young people who are exposed to thugs and people for whom human life has no meaning. And some of them are young youth corpers who have just finished from university. They are doing their youth service, usually in an environment
serve their fatherland.
To serve their fatherland, usually in an environment that they're not necessarily from.
Yeah.
And so I think we need to recognize that. Is it getting worse? I'll say yes and no. I think if you look at some previous state-level elections and some allegations of vote buying, you start to understand that if our votes didn't count, politicians won't bother to buy them, or they won't bother to attempt to buy them. So something is changing. Our votes are beginning to count, and that's why people are interested in buying the votes. And that's why, a few years ago, like Idayat said, it was about ballot snatching, and people could go and sit in a hotel and write some votes. The fact that the votes are now being burnt rather than snatched tells you we've moved away from that ability to simply sit in a hotel room and write the result. So there is some progress.
Positive ones? You want to describe it as positive?
Yeah, there are some positive developments in that area.
Is it not like a thief, moving a step further, getting sophisticated in the time he was using just a knife or a baton, now getting real sophisticated weapons?
No, the thing about it is this. The work I do is on governance reforms.
Okay.
And people often say, oh, If the reforms have happened, why are we still having the problems? And
Absolutely,
you say,
because if you look at Vision 2020, which is going to come to an end next year, ask the average minister or government official if he understands it, or what point is Nigeria at in the implementation of that vision?
Let's come back to Vision 2020. The issue is that reforms is continuous change.
Absolutely.
The bad people would always up their game. The good people up their game to match. The bad people up their game again. It's a constant thing. And so there is no country in the world where everything is perfect and you never need to change. You never need to improve. There's no such country. You know, in the US, we've had problems with, do they call them hanging chads? We've had people who are not able to cast their votes. We've had all sorts of issues. But if you look at the general trajectory, where we're coming from and where we're going, I think our lowest point was the 2003 elections. I think we've made some progress. There have been some challenges in a number of areas. There have been new challenges that we thought we had overcome by 2015. Our task now is to find a way to ensure that in the next round of elections, we've addressed those problems and planned for new ones.
Okay. Lady...
So let me quickly add to that. Actually, I think there has been progress. It's in response to the progress that the attitude of the political class has now become like hardened.
Yeah.
Because if there has not been progress, we will not go to like the 84,004,026 registered voters we have. That's like 14 million up from what we previously had in 2015. We will not get to almost 82% PVC collection rate. We will not have all those, we will not even have the 91 political parties really vying in these elections. And you are even beginning to see that from the last 2 weeks ago elections, we have the Young Progressive Party winning a seat, we have the PRP, People Redemption Party, we have the ADP, we have new players also coming up, even though you can call them fringe political parties. But they're all coming up.
They're making inroads into national...
the electoral. So there has actually been progress. But since the introduction of the card reader, when we did our trends and analysis ahead of these elections, we also discovered that by 2007-2003 elections, we said those numbers are not credible, although we will still use them because they are official statistics. But from 2011 to 2015, the numbers of votes is gradually beginning to reduce.
Decline, yeah.
So there is a decline.
Okay. Idayat, let me put you on pause there, and Joe, so that we'll take some messages and go on break, and we'll catch our breaths again. And